Back then, we had to find creative ways to advertise. Everything moved through flyers and straight word of mouth. That was it. We got real creative, too. We'd take apart the street lamps in the schoolyard and tap into the power just to run the system. Soon as we hooked up the amplifier and the speakers, the music itself became the advertisement. Kids from every neighborhood started showing up. Then the MC, the master of ceremonies, would grab the mic and start rapping, start battling. We were creating what you'd call flash mobs today, only back then, nobody had a name for it. People came from everywhere just to jam. The break dancers would watch each other, steal each other's moves, and that competition pushed everybody to get better. One of the crew had a turntable. Another one of us got a mixer for Christmas, and we built our own speakers from scratch. We pooled all our records together, whatever we had, and that's how we jammed. Most of the time, we didn't even announce a party. We just turned the music up as loud as we could, and before you knew it, the whole schoolyard would start filling up. Back then, the Bronx was divided up by rival gangs, mostly neighborhood lines. But what we started to see was that music had a different kind of power. It could pull people together, make them forget their differences for a while. Crews came from Brooklyn, Queens, Castle Hill, Bronx River, Soundview, Cashmere Gardens, the projects. And somehow, we brought all of them together peacefully.
Never had any issues with anybody at our parties. Our parties ran flawlessly, and nobody had no fights. Nobody had anything, and that was part of the starting of the Bolton crew, to keep the group, the family, the area. We grew up in the middle of Soundview. We had Soundview to one side and we had Castle Hill to the other side, which were always feuding and fighting in schools. But when we had them at our parties, everything ran smooth, and that's what the Bolton crew was about, bringing camaraderie together.
You gotta remember, parts of the Bronx looked like a war zone in those days. What we didn't realize at the time was that with rap music, scratch mixing, and breakdancing, we were actually giving the community something it needed: an outlet, a kind of therapy for people living through hard times.
It was a lot of practice. It was coming up with new inventions, and one of the things we had to do was mark our records with a marker to know where to put our needle and start mixing, so the beats would match, because now you have the computers that auto mix, and you ain't got to worry about all that. But you had to do that to keep the party going, right? The people need the same beat going, and you need to lead them in. And the only way we can do that was a lot of practice and designing new ways of doing it, with putting a record underneath another record so we can scratch and it'll slide a little easier.
What started in the Bronx in the 1970s turned into something nobody could have imagined. Kool Herc kicked it off around 1973, and after that, the movement spread like wildfire, first through the Bronx, then all across New York City, and now it's everywhere in the world. But back then, we were just kids looking for something creative to do. We watched, we listened, we copied what we saw, and then we tried to make it better. None of us had any idea we were making history.